The coronation of King Charles III was a day filled with glory, with a sparkling crown, radiant smiles, and hearts full of pride. However, within the solemn space of Westminster Abbey, a small but deeply moving moment captured everyone's attention. Prince George, still a young boy dressed in a dashing suit like a true prince, was seen wiping away tears after King Charles leaned down and whispered something in his ear. Although no one could hear the words spoken, the change in the boy's expression was immediate. Those nearby noticed that something special had just happened. What could Charles have said to make George cry on such a joyful day? What do you think was said to make him tear up? Leave a 1 if you feel emotional about it, or a 0 if you think it was just a regular moment. Enjoy the video and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Let's explore together. King Charles III's coronation had been meticulously planned, with every detail carefully prepared. It was supposed to be a magnificent celebration, with a sparkling crown, classic hymns filling the air, and traditions passed down through the centuries. As the trumpets sounded and all eyes were on the ceremony, a new king ascended the throne. But even on the most solemn of days, life sometimes writes its own unpredictable moments. Amidst the grandeur of the occasion, a quiet yet deeply moving moment unfolded. It wasn't part of the ceremony, nor was it mentioned in the speeches, but it became the one thing everyone would remember. King Charles, draped in his magnificent robes and wearing the crown, stood proudly under the bright lights of Westminster Abbey. Beside him, his grandson, Prince George, stood in his formal attire, looking more mature than his years. George held his head high, trying to appear strong, knowing that this wasn't just a simple ceremony, but a historic moment. And then a simple yet profoundly real event took place. King Charles turned toward George, his face filled with pride, but also with a touch of heaviness. Slowly, he bent down and whispered into the boy's ear. No one could hear the words he spoke, as there were no microphones nearby, and the cameras couldn't capture the whisper. Nevertheless, that moment became incredibly clear to those who witnessed it. "Hold your head high, my grandson," some speculated he might have said. Others believed the words could have been, "One day this place will be yours." Regardless of what was truly said, it deeply touched George's heart. His expression shifted quickly, his lips pressed together, and his eyes blinked rapidly, fighting to hold back the tears. Then George used his small hand to wipe away a tear from his cheek. That moment, though brief and quiet, was quickly captured by the cameras. It spread across the world in the blink of an eye. People from all corners of the globe shared the video, continuously asking, what did King Charles say to Prince George in that moment? What did King Charles say to his grandson? This question remains a mystery. Some speculate that it was a message of love, perhaps words like, "I'm proud of you, George." Others believe it could have been a warning, as if King Charles wanted to say, "This won't be easy." Still, some imagine the king whispered, "This crown comes with a heavy price." However, no one truly knows. These words remain a secret, shared only between him and his grandson. But what the world saw was a boy with a brave face, yet eyes brimming with tears. A boy standing at the heart of history. That moment, though small, echoed louder than all the formal speeches at the coronation. It reminded everyone that behind the crowns, the sparkling diamonds, and the ancient traditions, there are real people with compassionate hearts. An elderly woman on Twitter wrote, "Even kings have heavy hearts." Another shared, "A single tear tells 1,000 stories." As the ceremony continued, the royal family made their way into the Grand Hall with Prince George leading the procession. His face was solemn, his steps measured. Behind him, the heavy, luxurious cloak fluttered, carrying with it a rich history. It was the same cloak that George's grandfather, King Charles, had worn as a child during his own royal event. Before Charles, that cloak had belonged to kings whose names were forever etched in history. With every step, George walked over the ancient stones of Westminster Abbey. His footsteps not only followed the path of his ancestors, but also moved toward a future he never had the choice to shape. He was a child, yet a prince, carrying the fairy tale of an entire dynasty on his shoulders. Those watching from home may not have fully understood the royal protocols, but they could feel the weight of the moment. They saw a boy, a tear, a whisper, and they understood. There are things like love duty and quiet courage that resonate in the heart of every person. In that single tear, the world saw both the past and the future. Next, we will delve into the king's heartfelt words to George during the coronation. What words could have caused a child to shed tears? Let's explore further. A crown too heavy for a child to bear. King Charles's coronation was supposed to be a perfect day. The crowd gathered, the bells rang, and the crowns glittered under the clear blue sky. But while the world watched the solemn ceremony, a quiet, gentle moment unfolded, an unexpected moment. It wasn't the weight of the crown that made Prince George shed a tear. It wasn't the heavy cloak or the long, tiring day. It was something far more precious than gold or jewels. It was a soft, gentle whisper from his grandfather. "Come here, my grandson," King Charles quietly said, bending down so only George could hear. In that moment, it wasn't a king speaking to a prince. It was a grandfather speaking to his grandson. The words Charles shared didn't echo, but their meaning was profound. They carried with them years of wisdom, sorrow, and lessons learned from a life filled with responsibility, a life where personal desires mattered less than duty. "In this life, choices are few," Charles whispered. "The world will watch you. They will cheer, and sometimes they will judge. But remember, your heart belongs to you." Prince George was only 9 years old, but there was something within him that understood. His young heart suddenly ached with a quiet pain, a pain he couldn't name. In that moment, the noisy crowd, the glittering crowns, and even the royal cloaks vanished. All that remained was a boy and his grandfather sharing a secret too old for a child and too sorrowful for a crown. Tears welled up in George's eyes. He quickly wiped them away with the back of his hand. But the camera had already captured that moment, a brief sadness in the midst of a joyful day. "It's not the crown," George told himself. "It's the weight of it." The whole world witnessed that moment, and hearts melted. This wasn't just a boy playing dress-up in royal attire. This was a child silently beginning to understand a future that had already been mapped out for him. A future filled with smiles from the crowds waving at strangers and bearing the weight of ancient duties that were never his choice. King Charles, who had waited his whole life to wear the crown, looked at his young grandson not as a prince but as a boy with dreams, fears, and a life yet to be fully lived. "You are not alone," Charles said softly to his grandson. "I was once you." Just a simple sentence, yet it carried immense meaning. Those 4 words, George felt a warmth enveloping him. There was someone who understood, someone who knew what it felt like to have a path laid out before you, even before you could read it. That day passed with music cheers and royal traditions, but something quietly shifted in George's heart. The dazzling image of royalty flickered out for a moment, leaving behind something deeply human. A boy carrying both hopes and worries, silently bearing a future meant for someone older. Even amidst grand palaces and ancient rituals, the sweetest thing was a touch of understanding. And on that coronation day, Prince George was reminded of something beautiful. Behind every crown, Charles whispered, "There is only one person." And more than any crown or cloak, that was the most precious gift of the day. The burden may be heavy, but there are always hands ready to lift it standing beside you. So who are they? Let's explore in the next chapter. The gentle touch of a mother. She didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Amidst the vast hall, the sparkling crown, and the soothing music, Duchess Catherine spoke in a much softer voice, a gentle touch. While young Prince George stood near the throne, his small heart heavy after the serious conversation with his grandfather, Catherine did something small yet unforgettable. She reached out and gently took his hand. This was not part of the royal plan. No one had written it into the schedule or rehearsed it during the practice sessions. It wasn't part of ancient traditions. But in that simple moment, Catherine reminded the world of something profoundly important. Behind all the grandeur, titles, and duties, there was just a boy who needed his mother. "Be brave, my dear," Catherine whispered to him before the big day began. And now, as George's brave face began to tremble, she was there. Not as a duchess, not as a future queen, but as a mother. Those close to the family knew that Catherine had quietly prepared for this day. She understood how much George was being asked to carry. For weeks he had learned how to stand tall, how to smile politely, and how to behave like a proper young prince. But nothing could prepare him for the soft, heavy words that King Charles whispered into his ear. Words about duty, about the future, about the crown he would one day wear. And as George's eyes welled up with tears, Catherine saw it. She didn't panic. She didn't seek attention. She simply placed her hand over his, sending a message without saying a word.
I think the girls with their nails done now.
"I see you, my son. I'm right here." That was the gentlest moment of the day. In a room filled with rules, ancient traditions, and sparkling jewels, the soft touch of a mother shone brighter than anything else. The choir sang speeches echoed, and the crowns glittered under the lights. But it was this small act of love that truly touched the heart. Nearby, another person was also watching George. A small, silent bond between siblings suddenly became clear. A glance, a gentle smile. These subtle signs revealed that family ties remained strong even amidst a great event. The image of Catherine's hand holding George's and his tear-filled eyes quickly spread across the world. And no longer did people talk about the glittering cloaks or the golden throne. They spoke of the quiet strength of a mother and the brave heart of a child. Behind every crown, someone in the crowd whispered, "There is a family." And on that unforgettable day, the greatest mark left wasn't the royal jewels or ancient words. It was a simple act of love. A mother wanting to say, "You are not alone." The strength of Charlotte. Amidst a world filled with sparkling crowns, golden carriages, and flashing cameras, There is a young princess who doesn't need to speak or wave to be noticed. She doesn't seek attention, yet she quietly asserts her presence. It was at King Charles's coronation, a day filled with ancient traditions and royal duties, that Princess Charlotte showed everyone the true meaning of a loving sibling, a kind heart, and a quiet companion. As Prince George, clad in royal attire, passed by on his way to the throne, Charlotte's gaze followed him. She remained calm, her small face serious, but the gentle tilt of her head spoke volumes. In that simple look, one could see everything. Pride, concern, and a fleeting moment of anxiety. It wasn't the face of a girl excited about the grand event. It was the face of a sister gently understanding how important this moment was for her brother. People all over the world took notice. Many whispered, "Look at her, so calm and wise." Others called her the silent heart of the family. She was the one who remained composed when emotions ran high. And indeed, Charlotte was exactly that on that day. A calm presence, silently loving and supportive. Those who know Charlotte well would say this was no surprise. She has always shared a close bond with her brothers, especially with Prince George. At every major royal event, Charlotte expresses her kindness through small, thoughtful actions. She doesn't need anyone to tell her what to do. It seems she instinctively understands. One unforgettable moment occurred at the funeral of Queen Elizabeth II. The atmosphere was heavy with sorrow, and the royal family stood in silence. Charlotte wore a tiny horseshoe pin on her black coat, a simple and sweet way to honor her great-grandmother's love for horses. That moment truly touched all of our hearts, didn't it? Charlotte is not just a royal family member, but also a symbol of grace and compassion. What do you think about her small but meaningful gesture? Leave a 1 if you were moved by it, or a 0 if you think it was a truly admirable act. Share your thoughts below the video, and don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. But the moment that truly touched her heart came when she realized George had forgotten something important. With a gentle nudge and a soft whisper, she reminded him to bow as the Queen's coffin passed by. George quickly stood upright, and the camera captured that moment. That one small gesture said it all. Charlotte understood what her brother needed even before he realized it himself. In that quiet, reflective moment, she displayed wisdom far beyond her years. And it wasn't the first time. During the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, young Prince Louis, full of energy and excitement, couldn't sit still. He clapped too loudly, made funny faces, and fidgeted in his seat while the whole world was watching. But instead of laughing or scolding him, Charlotte gently stepped in. She leaned toward her younger brother, whispered a few soft words, and helped him calm down. A small, sweet moment, but it revealed Charlotte's natural kindness and her gentle sense of responsibility. She has a heart full of compassion. A family friend once said that she knows when to step in and when to let things unfold naturally. Charlotte also holds a very special place in royal history. Thanks to a rule known as the Perth Agreement, when Prince Louis was born, he was not placed ahead of Charlotte in the line of succession, something that would have happened in the past. This made Charlotte the first British princess to retain her position ahead of her younger brother. While it may seem like a small matter, it is a quiet step toward fairness. However, Charlotte's importance lies not only in history, but also in who she is as a person. Those who have watched her grow have seen a smart, playful, and kind-hearted girl. Her mischievous smiles, humorous expressions, and quirky moments like when she stuck out her tongue in front of the crowd or helped George adjust his cloak during a ceremony have warmed the hearts of people around the world. There is something magical in the way she combines the grace of royalty with the innocence of childhood. Many royal watchers have noticed that Charlotte reminds them of her great-grandmother, Princess Diana. Diana was famous for her kindness, warm heart, and the way she cared for people quietly but deeply. And now those sweet qualities seem to be shining through in Charlotte. She knows when to wave, when to smile, and when to offer comfort, a royal reporter shared. But what's most special is that it all comes so naturally. There's no rehearsal. Only she could do that. At a Commonwealth Day service, another touching moment occurred. As the royal family entered the church, young Prince Louis hesitated. The crowd was massive, cameras were everywhere, and it was overwhelming for such a young child. Without saying a word, Charlotte gently placed her hand on her younger brother's back, softly guiding him forward. No one told her to do that. She just understood. These small, loving actions have shown the world a Charlotte who is slowly growing into a thoughtful young girl. Her calm spirit and caring nature seem to grow stronger with each royal event. William and Catherine, proud and loving parents, have worked tirelessly to give their children a happy, stable life filled with joy, love, and gentle lessons about their duties. And their efforts have clearly paid off. Charlotte handles public events with grace, charm, and kindness. She knows when to be cheerful, when to be composed, and when to step in and offer help. Although Prince George will one day ascend to the throne, it is clear that Charlotte will always be by his side. She doesn't seek attention, nor will she ever look for it. But with her steadfast, loving nature, she will shine in her own way, quietly, sweetly, and naturally. Some in royal circles have even compared her to Princess Anne, the sister of King Charles. Princess Anne is known for her wisdom, strength, and calm demeanor. She has always been there when her family needed her without seeking the spotlight. Many believe that Charlotte will grow into a woman like that, calm, kind, and quietly strong. Moments like her determined gaze during the coronation, her gentle reminder at the Queen's funeral, and her care for Louis at public events are not just sweet stories for the cameras. They are the beginning of something beautiful. A strong, loving bond between siblings and a young girl quietly building her future as the gentle heart of the royal family. And while the world may see crowns, jewels, and magnificent palaces, it is the simple, gentle acts of love that matter the most. In every family, whether royal or not, it is these small moments that will always remain etched in your heart. As one royal fan said when seeing Charlotte's gentle hand placed on her brother's shoulder, "She may be a princess, but she is already a queen of kindness." In the next chapter, let's look at a coronation filled with shadows and echoes of the past. A coronation brimming with memories of history. It was a day the entire world had awaited. A day of crowns, golden cloaks, and ancient hymns. But behind the glittering jewels and the cheering crowds, something deeper was unfolding. King Charles's coronation was not just about the crown. It was about memories, emotions, and unspoken words. The streets of London were packed with people. They waved flags, smiled, and cheered as a magnificent carriage rolled by. Inside, King Charles and Queen Camilla sat impeccably dressed, their expressions calm yet pensive. "The king is here," someone shouted. The air was filled with excitement. Bells rang from the tall church towers. Soldiers stood in neat rows, their uniforms gleaming. It was a majestic sight, a beauty that the world would remember forever. But if you looked closely, you could also sense something else. A quiet sadness that seemed to fill the air. A sorrow that couldn't be put into words, only felt. Inside Westminster Abbey, the ancient church where kings and queens had been crowned for centuries, everything was ready. The old chairs, the flickering candlelight, the stained glass windows. Everything looked beautiful, yet heavy, as if the very air carried the weight of countless stories of the kings and queens who had come before. Charles and Camilla slowly entered. The very seats that Queen Elizabeth II had once sat in during her coronation in 1953 were now waiting for them. The room was filled with important figures from all over the world. But in that moment, time seemed to stand still. Charles bowed his head. Camilla did the same. A profound silence enveloped the church, as if every heart stopped to remember those who had passed. Perhaps Charles was thinking of his mother, Queen Elizabeth. Perhaps he was thinking of his father, Prince Philip, or even of Princess Diana, whose memory silently accompanied everyone. A young boy from the choir stepped forward. His voice was gentle yet strong as he sang the hymn of welcome. The sound spread throughout the abbey like a soft breeze. Charles smiled warmly. "Thank you," he whispered. Then the ceremony began. Prayers were offered, vows exchanged, and ancient words, spoken words that had been passed down through generations.
I think the girls with their nails done now.
The important guests stood one by one and asked the people if they accepted Charles as their king. "We do," the crowd responded in unison, their voices echoing beneath the high, vaulted ceiling. Charles was handed a Bible, a symbol of faith and duty. He gently took it, knowing that it was not just a book. It was a promise to treat his subjects with fairness and kindness. When it was time to take the oath, Charles stood tall. He recited the oath clearly, pledging to rule justly and protect the Church of England. He signed his name in a large book, perhaps recalling how his mother had done the same. He bowed his head before the altar, closed his eyes, and a quiet prayer escaped his lips. No one could hear the words, but heaven. Then the moment everyone had been waiting for arrived. The golden crown, heavy with jewels, was slowly lifted and placed on Charles's head. The choir sang louder. The music rang joyfully. Cannons fired from afar. Even the ships offshore sounded their horns. But this was not just Charles's moment. In the front row, Prince William watched intently. His eyes shone with pride, but also held something else, a quiet understanding. He knew that one day it would be his turn. Sitting beside William was young Prince George, just a boy, yet already living a story that would shape his life. He stared at the crown, his young mind filled with thoughts he couldn't yet put into words. Across the room, religious leaders from various faiths stood side by side. It was a quiet symbol that while the royal family still upheld old traditions, the world around them was changing. The old and the new stood together. One of the most emotional moments came when Prince William stepped forward. He knelt before his father and gently placed his hand in Charles's. "I am your son, "And I promise to be loyal," he said. The room filled with quiet applause and cheers. But if you looked closely at William's face, you could see a shadow. Perhaps he was remembering his childhood beside his mother, Princess Diana, during moments like this. Now he was here, a grown man standing beside his son. The ceremony was not just about the king and queen. It was about family love and loss, about memories that linger long after people are gone. Every stone in Westminster Abbey seemed to whisper ancient stories. Every chair carried the ghosts of the past, and each person witnessing it, whether in the church or on a TV screen far away, carried their own silent thoughts. For Charles, this day was not just about ascending the throne. It was about survival. He had waited longer than any heir in history. And though he wore the crown, it came with a price. The heavy gold was not just metal. It carried regrets, mistakes, and countless issues of royal life. Perhaps that's why, in a quiet moment, Charles bent down to look at Prince George. He whispered something softly. No one else could hear, but it made the boy's eyes well up with tears. A single tear rolled down George's cheek. The camera caught that moment, although most people missed it. That tiny tear echoed louder than the trumpets and bells. It told the story of a boy caught between childhood and destiny. And so amidst the resounding singing and the cheers of the world, it was that tiny, glistening tear that became the focal point of the day. Let us step out of our comfort zones to understand the depth and weight that George carries on his shoulders. What does it feel like to be the heir? Let's follow along. The journey of a young prince. The whole world turned its gaze to London on a bright, warm summer day, July 22nd, 2013. Inside St. Mary, a tiny baby boy just born. But this was no ordinary baby. This was a royal child, a young prince. His great-grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, was still reigning. His parents, Prince William and Catherine, Duke and Duchess of Cambridge, were overjoyed. As news of his birth spread, joy radiated across the world. From the small villages in rural England to far-off cities, people cheered, smiled, and embraced one another. "It's a prince!" they shouted. Everyone had a reason to celebrate that day. A beautiful golden easel was placed outside Buckingham Palace following tradition. On it, a message of happiness was written for all to see. The crowd flocked there eagerly reading it. The press quickly published images of his tiny face, and people everywhere wondered what this little prince would grow up to be like, both as a boy and a man. Just 2 days later, on July 24th, his name was finally revealed to the world, George Alexander Louis, a simple, sweet name. But behind it lay a profound history. When Prince George was born, he became third in line to the British throne. For the first time since Queen Victoria's reign, there were 3 future kings alive: Prince George, his father William, and his grandfather Charles. The early months of Prince George's life passed in peace and quiet. The small family lived in Anglesey, Wales, where they enjoyed simple, happy days, away from the flash of cameras. In 2014, they moved to Kensington Palace in London. That same year, baby George had his first royal tour. The royal family flew to New Zealand and Australia for 3 weeks, focusing on carrying their 8-month-old son down the stairs. The Duchess of Sussex also had to face harsh weather conditions. Though George was still just a baby, He had already captured the hearts of everyone. Everyone was captivated by the little adorable face and the tiny wave of the baby. "The boy is the star of the show," people said with radiant smiles. In Australia, excitement filled the air. The country's prime minister even mentioned baby George in Parliament. Some jokingly speculated that one day George might even become the King of Australia. The media affectionately nicknamed him the Republican Destroyer because his visit made many feel closer to the royal family. In June 2015, Prince George had a very special day. He appeared on the famous balcony of Buckingham Palace after the Trooping the Colour ceremony. Dressed impeccably, he waved to the cheering crowd. The scene was so sweet that it made everyone witnessing it smile. "Look at the little prince," people whispered. "He's growing so fast." From 2015 to 2017, Prince George lived happily at Anmer Hall in Norfolk. It was a peaceful countryside home where the boy could run on the grass, chase butterflies, and play in tranquility. In January 2016, George turned a new page in his life. The boy began attending nursery at Westacre Montessori School. The whole world delighted in seeing photos of the little prince in his school uniform, ready for his first day. Not long after, a heartwarming moment occurred. Little George met Barack and Michelle Obama. He wore a tiny bathrobe and slippers during the visit. Everyone smiled at this adorable sight. People affectionately said he was just an ordinary boy. In September 2017, George reached another important milestone, his first day of school. He began attending Thomas's school in Battersea, where he was simply called George Cambridge. No fancy titles, just a boy making friends and learning new things. Time seemed to pass quickly. In 2022, the family moved to Adelaide Cottage in Windsor Home Park. Also in September of that year, Prince George, along with his sister, Princess Charlotte, and younger brother, Prince Louis, began attending Lambrook School in Berkshire. A new adventure arrived in 2024. Prince George reached the age to begin learning to fly, a tradition followed by many members of the royal family before him. It marked an exciting chapter in his youthful life. But before that, in June 2022, he participated in a moment the whole nation would never forget: the Platinum Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II. During the Trooping the Colour parade, George sat on the royal carriage and proudly waved to the crowd. It was a beautiful and meaningful moment for both the royal family and the nation. Sadly, just a few months later, on September 8, 2022, Queen Elizabeth II passed away. It was a deeply sorrowful day for the nation and the world. Prince Charles ascended the throne as King Charles III, and young Prince George was placed second in line to the throne right after his father. Another memorable day arrived on May 6, 2023, the coronation of King Charles III. Prince George played an important role as a page of honor. Dressed in his formal attire, he carried out his duties with grace. It was a proud day for the family, and George will surely remember it. Though still young, Prince George occasionally joins his parents at royal events and family celebrations. Alongside Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis, he represents the bright and hopeful future of the royal family. As people often say, one day the little boy in the tiny bathrobe will wear the crown. But for now, he is just George, the young prince, who brings smiles to the world. Next, we'll explore the preparations for George's ascension to the throne. And guess what? It's more intense and serious than you might think. preparing Prince George for a life like no other. On the day of King Charles's coronation, the world watched in awe. The grand cathedral was filled with brilliant cloaks, sparkling crowns, and soothing music. It was a day of ancient traditions and royal promises. But amidst it all, one small figure captured every gaze: Prince George. The boy stood there tall and proud, draped in his grandfather's cloak. He moved gracefully behind the crown, his youthful face calm and sweet. People smiled and whispered, "Look at him. He's so natural." But what many didn't know was that the quiet work had been taking place long before that day arrived. Prince George didn't just wake up on Coronation Day hoping everything would go smoothly. For weeks within the palace, gentle and careful plans had been made for him. The royal staff worked closely to help George feel calm and ready for the big day. They didn't just teach him how to manage the heavy cloak or how to bow. They taught him how to stand tall, breathe steadily, and maintain a gentle smile, even with the world's cameras following his every move. George secretly practiced in the palace courtyard and quiet chapels. The staff even created simulated spaces that closely resembled Westminster Abbey, where the actual event would take place. There, George could carefully practice his steps away from curious eyes. His mother, Catherine, made sure that even while George was learning royal ceremonies, he still enjoyed the joys of being a child. He went to school, played games with his friends, and ended each day with bedtime stories. Catherine wanted her son to feel the joy and warmth of childhood, even as she quietly prepared him for the future that awaited him. But no matter how many lessons Prince George learned, there were things he could never practice. The gentle whispers in the church, the tiny tears at the corner of his eyes, and the profound truth that his life would never be like other children's. These moments couldn't be rehearsed. On that day, George didn't just wear a cloak. He carried a promise for the future. That cloak had once been worn by Queen Elizabeth II, and long before her by King George VI. Now it rested in the young hands of George, causing them to tremble as he took each step. No lesson could truly prepare you for the moment when your life silently changes forever. The royal family knows this, and they also understand that even greater changes are coming for Prince George. An ancient royal rule known to very few was quietly referenced. It's a simple yet serious rule. The two direct heirs to the throne are never allowed to fly on the same plane. It may seem odd, but this rule has been in place for a long time to protect the royal lineage. If something were to happen during a flight, there would still be an heir ready to ascend to the throne one day. When George was young, William and Catherine often chose to travel together as a family of 5. They believed that being together was essential no matter what the old customs said. "We are stronger when we're together," Catherine would often say with a gentle smile. But now, as George has grown, this rule has come up once again. Royal tradition dictates that when an heir turns 12, they should begin flying separately with their parents. This means that one day George may have to wave goodbye to his siblings at the airport, not because the boy is in trouble, but because of the royal role he was born into. So behind every smile and every proud step of Prince George, there is a silent story that the world cannot see. A story of duty, love, and a boy learning to wear the crown, one gentle step at a time. The promise of a father, the shadow of a son. Inside the magnificent gleaming walls of Westminster Abbey, a moment quietly and powerfully touched the heart. The air was filled with ancient traditions, soothing music and emotions that only a few could truly understand.
I think the girls with their nails done now.
Among them was Prince William, the eldest son of King Charles III. Under the watchful eyes of the world, Prince William slowly stepped forward. His gaze was calm, yet filled with deep emotion. He knelt before his father, gently placing his hand in the king's. In a steady voice, he spoke the words that princes had whispered for centuries. "I am your loyal son," his heart seemed to say. For those watching, it was a beautiful promise, a promise of love, loyalty, and immense responsibility. Many clapped softly while others wiped away tears. But there was someone else observing more closely, perceiving this moment in a very different way. Young Prince George, just 9 years old, stood quietly behind his mother. His small hands clutched the hem of his mother's dress as he glanced around, watching his father. Most boys his age would be thinking about toys, games, or silly stories. But George's eyes were fixed firmly on his father, and deep within, something was shifting. That morning, before the grand ceremony, King Charles called George over. In a soft yet serious voice, he spoke to him about the throne, the family, and what the future would one day require of him. "Today observe carefully, my son," the king whispered. And George did. He witnessed his father kneel not just before a man, but before a crown, before history, and before a world that one day would belong to him. In the next chapter, we'll explore what this means for the public and its impact on the future. Stay with us, as it may make you rethink what you once thought was true. Not just a page boy, when the grand coronation ceremony was broadcast on TV, people everywhere glued their eyes to the screen. It wasn't just the sparkling carriages, the golden crowns, or the ancient traditions. No, there was something much deeper that touched everyone's heart that day. It was a small boy doing his best to hold on to the heavy royal cloak, his eyes shimmering with tears, quietly standing behind his father. That boy was Prince George. While the world had seen him many times before, this moment felt different. The young prince wasn't playing in the garden or smiling on the royal balcony. He was standing inside Westminster Abbey, surrounded by kings, queens, and camera lenses, witnessing his father's promise to serve the kingdom.
Girls with their nails done.
As soon as the coronation was announced online, George's face appeared everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok were flooded with discussions about him. Some cheered for his brave and composed demeanor, while others felt a quiet sorrow for the boy who seemed to be bearing such a heavy burden. One message online captured it perfectly. He was no longer just a boy. He was a future king in the making. Many royal watchers praised him, saying that Princess Catherine had raised a boy full of kindness and strength. However, behind those kind words, one question still lingered. Is it fair to ask so much from a child so young? The royal family has always involved their children in important events. King Charles had duties from a young age. Queen Elizabeth gave her first official speech when she was just 14. But the world back then was much more peaceful. There were no smartphones, no internet, no countless images shared in mere seconds. Today, every glance, every small step, every tear is captured by millions, spread and discussed. A tiny moment can become a global story. At the coronation, Prince George was not only watched by those in the palace. Millions of people from around the world also turned their gaze toward him. His simple actions became breaking news, playful jokes online, and trending topics on social media. While many smiled proudly at the brave young prince, some silently wondered, is this too much for him? Is he truly old enough to understand the significance of standing behind the crown? And is it fair to ask a child to carry such heavy emotions on their small shoulders? As the carriages rolled away and the sound of the trumpets faded, one question still echoed. What happens next? Those close to the royal family whispered that Prince William and Duchess Catherine were thoughtfully considering their son's future. They wanted him to have a childhood filled with simple joys, school days, bedtime stories, cozy family dinners, and afternoons spent playing with his younger brother Louis and sister Charlotte. There has been talk about giving Prince George some time away from the public eye. Fewer cameras, fewer official events, and more space for him to just be a regular boy. Catherine, they say, feels this deeply. To her, George is not just a future king. He is her young son. She wants to protect him from heavy expectations, outdated traditions, and the scrutinizing gaze of the world. But the royal crown waits for no one. The rules of kingship titles and formal events continue on. Whether the heir is young or old, Prince George remains second in line to the throne. And though that day may seem far off, plans have already been quietly set in motion. His brother and sister will stand by his side when the time comes. It is said that little Charlotte has a steady strength reminiscent of Queen Elizabeth in her day. She could be one of George's most ardent supporters. And then, there is King Charles. No one knows exactly what he whispered to George during the coronation. Some believe it was a gentle reminder of the weight of leading a nation. Others think it was simply a promise, I am proud of you. Right now, no one can predict what the future holds for George. But one thing is clear. He is not just a royal title. He is the beginning of a new chapter for the monarchy. A chapter that will not only be written in history books, but also in small, tender moments. Just one tear, one whispered word, one brave boy, standing tall under the watchful eyes of the world. The story is far from over. This is just the beginning of a much more exciting chapter for the monarchy. Stay tuned closely as the future of the monarchy depends on it, for they may redefine royalty for a new era full of hope. Don't forget to share your thoughts below this video. If you found this story interesting, make sure to hit like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss any more captivating royal stories. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.